right, everybody. It's your good buddy Spider back again for the season finale. That's right, it's a finale. And I could have done a show about finales, but I didn't want to. I wanted to do something else instead. So instead of finales, we're going to be talking about sports, which is something that I've never been good at, ever, in life. Ever. And I mean it. Like, if you've ever seen me, if you see me at a sporting event, you'll understand. I'm terrible. But that's okay. We're going to do that, and let's talk about this. Got my sound effect there. Perfect. So joining me, of course, I have to have a guest if I'm going to talk about something like this. I can't do sports on my own because I'm not a sports guy. So I have to have a sports guy. And this is my sports guy. Can you guess who it is? You might know him from that little show called Night Dream. I mean, not that show. That's a different show entirely. You might know him from another Let's Talk About. No. That's a different show too. It's This Uncanny Earth's Rob. He's here.
Yeah, I'm right there. Well, I'm not there. I'm here.
Well, yeah, you're not like physically sitting on the couch.
This Uncanny Earth Studios.
Right. You're in the official studios. I'm in the auxiliary, like, trailer park, underground bunker, like, don't let your kids go over there because there's weird stuff in that neighborhood studio. Which is not my fault.
But not in a weird, like...
No,
weird
not
way,
not like that.
But in a weird, like...
Yeah.
He knows, he's read the Anarchist Cookbook a few times.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of dry until you add in the Molotovs. Okay, so... Downhill already. A lot of complaints.
Already. You already know.
But, sports. And,
sports ball.
Here in the United States, we love our sports. I mean, I say that collectively, being a person that's not a big sports guy, but we love our sports. Like, it's huge here. And we've got, I consider, basically we've got four big ones that are most common. And there's like a fifth one that we kind of do okay in. We've got, of course, American football, which is everybody's big one. We've got basketball. Right? We got baseball, which...
The American pastime.
We're a little rivaled in that with Japan, because Japan loves baseball. Absolutely loves
it. Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
And then we got hockey, which is like not as big as the other three, but it's still big enough that I mention it. It's we kind of inherited that from up north there, from our neighbors up in Canada. And we kind of have a fifth one. We kind of have soccer, but that's kind of where things get a little weird. Like we're into soccer, but we're not, because the rest of the world like loves soccer. It's huge, and we're just kind of like, yeah, we play soccer sometimes. We do some soccer. But
the women do more soccer than the men do. The women do a lot of soccer.
Yeah, we're more known for our women's soccer team for, a variety of reasons, both good, bad, and controversial, which we're not going to talk about here. So, but let's start with the big one. Let's talk about football, because I know you have a favorite team.
Oh, I sure do.
I know you've been like following them quite a while, and we've had a lot of jokes and a lot of celebrations and a lot of oh-mans about that. So, what's football? What's your team?
Of course, it's going to be them New Orleans Saints, them Saint boys. My favorite iteration of the Saints would have to be the Sean Payton and Drew Brees Super Bowl team era. Though I was there in the Aaron Brooks, throw the football behind you, don't know how you did that era. So I've been in a few eras with them. Mike Ditka coaching era. You guys know from the Bears. Coached the Bears for a while.
The Bears.
Coached the Saints. Then I was there in the Ricky Williams era when all he wanted to do was get high, which never really worked out quite well for us. He went on to the Dolphins and did semi-decent in the Dolphins, but never hit a stride with us. So, yeah, I got to see them win the Super Bowl. I didn't get to go to the Super Bowl. That would have been nice. But I got to see them play Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts, another really high-powered team that year back in 2010. It was a good time. A lot of people at the place I was working at the time, Dick's Sporting Goods, sports, right?
Sports team.
They said that the Saints were going to lose, and I was like, I'll bet you the Saints win. I'll bet you the Saints, because I knew they were going to win. I knew it. I felt it in my heart. And they won. I got to see them win. It was 100% a nail biter down to the fourth quarter. Last down, it was nuts. It was nuts. It was cool. It was a good game. It was great. And they didn't really do anything after that. Went to the playoffs a few times. Got knocked out, but I got to see him win it once, and seeing that and growing up and getting the Baskin Robbins ice cream helmet and the Saint helmet. This was with my grandma when I was a kid, and got the helmet, and that was the team that I ate the ice cream out of, the helmet. So I went ahead and picked their team to be my favorite.
I remember that game being super close. Like, I remember it being like nobody was sure exactly which way it was going to go. Like, they were like, "Oh no, it's going to be this, and then it's going to be that," and then like it was nobody really expected how it was going to end. Super Bowl is expensive to go to too. Like, the tickets for the Super Bowl, people buy like a year in advance or longer. There are people who have like multi-year Super Bowl tickets, and I mean, it must be nice to have that kind of disposable income. But at the same time, I myself probably would get no value from a Super Bowl ticket because, for better or for worse, the team that I guess if you were going to say I follow a team just to say I follow one, is the team from Cleveland that never goes. It's the Brownie Boys that never...
They went to the playoffs last year.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it was pretty exciting to actually do that. And that was after a contentious couple of years where they were basically just starting fights on the field pretty regularly.
You got to win somehow.
Yeah, they were like getting well known for going after people and causing injuries and things, which is kind of a dirty way to play the game. But you know what? I guess if it works, it works.
We did it too. We got caught for it. So every team does it.
Now, Cleveland, at least, they have something that no one else has ever had before. And it's both a point of pride and a point of great embarrassment. And it should not ever really be done for loyalty to a team. But Cleveland had a season where they lost every single game. And so a bunch of diehard superfans were like, you know what? You went 100% defeated, which is kind of like undefeated, so we're going to hold a parade. So they held a 0-0 parade.
0-16, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a pretty sorry moment, but it was pretty surreal because nobody else does that with their teams. Like, nobody else is going to be that like crazy about their team, I guess. So you got to give them that, I suppose.
You don't have to.
No, I didn't either. I'm trying to be polite now. I'm trying to be polite, give them a little bit of credit, but I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
When I was growing up and I was in school, I went to school in Pennsylvania. So, of course, I was surrounded by everybody who was like Pittsburgh Steelers fans, 100%. So, if you're a Cleveland fan surrounded by Pittsburgh fans, you tend to not tell people what team you follow because it just brings you relentless bullying. Which is something that Steelers fans are known for. There's some prejudice there for you. Some prejudice.
If they go to Cleveland Browns games, they end up getting in fights with Browns fans, and if Browns fans go to Steelers games, they get into fights with Steelers fans.
That's a fact.
And I believe they knocked the Steelers out of the playoffs last year, so that was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. It happens once in a while. It's like one of those little Hail Mary things that, oh, yeah, we did it. We beat our rivals, but we're not going to go any farther from here. But, you know, hey, little things. Little things.
Listen, we were there at one time, so I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. So let's move on from football then. We got football in there. And the next big one is basketball. And being here in this part of Ohio, it's the home, well, I mean, some people aren't real happy about it anymore, but people were pretty proud of it at first. It was the home and the original schooling town of LeBron James. So we had a lot of that several years ago. Like, everybody's like, LeBron, and then of course he switched teams a few times, and now everybody hates him or loves him or whatever. You know, I don't get into all that kind of stuff, but
right.
But as far as basketball goes, what's your take on basketball? Do you have a team? Do you have a couple of teams?
Had a team. I was a big fan of the Seattle Supersonics, the Detlef Schrempf, Gary Payton, Sean Kemp era of basketball. That was like 90s. Saw them a few times. Well, I'd watch them play on TV quite a few times. But they never went to the big dance, or they never won the big dance. I should say they never won the big dance. But little known fact, Peyton was one of the few people that could guard Michael Jordan of the Chicago Bulls. Like guard him well.
And that's a good feat, because the thing Michael Jordan had, he had a lot of talent, but the other thing he had was that he had confidence, 100% confidence all the time. And that's what threw people off. Like when people moved in to guard him all the time, he'd just be like, nope, 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 nope. Even if he wasn't necessarily playing well, it was his attitude that would throw people off, and it would like double his chances of doing well at what he was doing in the sport.
Yeah, no, and that's 100% correct too. And the thing is, he won a championship with Cleveland, the Cavs. I remember that year. My buddy Jay, he's a big fan of the Cavs. Not so much a big fan of LeBron. Did not like LeBron when he left. A lot of people did not like LeBron when he left. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I don't have the same ties to the Cavs that a lot of other people in the area do. I've been to a couple of their games. I remember the Mark Price years. Everybody remembers Mark Price. If you lived here, Mark Price was the big thing then. But not a lot of people was a big fan of LeBron. I was just like, hey man, let that man go play basketball. He makes more money than all of us. He's gonna go do it. I mean, I get on one end, I get their point. He's supposed to be loyal to a team.
Yeah.
But, and then they went head to head against the Warriors. And an interesting fact: the Cavs actually went to the playoffs this year and lost in the first round to the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks had big man Patrick Ewing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I used to watch quite a bit of basketball.
I know some names still. I know some names. Like I know Patrick Ewing. I know
Robinson,
LeBron.
baby, the Admiral.
I know also you got Lonzo Ball and those guys all running around. And
that's a weird mess right there. I don't know.
They all seem to be a little bit more like they have the Johnny Manziel syndrome, where they're kind of like more hype than anything, but they've got talent that they just don't they don't use to their full extent. But I don't have a basketball team myself. I never really got into it that much, and you have seen me play basketball, and it's kind of a sad spectacle.
Don't quit your day job.
That's right. I'm not shy to admit it. I'm not going to front and say that I'm any good at it, because I'm certainly not. And you are the witness that says he's right. He certainly is not.
Right. He's right. I'm see now personally, I know how to play a little basketball. I played a little bit in high school, nothing like grand. I wasn't like MVP of the team, but I did a little bit of basketball. So
yeah,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed '90s basketball. Yeah, I watched quite a bit of it. So,
and people get like they have this March Madness for basketball, which is the name of their playoff
college
season
basketball.
and stuff.
Yep.
And I think basketball is kind of suffering a little bit these days. It's not getting as much popularity as it used to, and I don't know if maybe that's, there's political stuff and there's this and that, which we're not really going to talk about. But I mean, it's kind of a shame, because you see all the big flashy commercials and everything, just like when they do Monday Night Football and all this other kind of stuff, and it's still pushed like a real big sport, but people are kind of like angsty about it these days for some reason.
Yeah, I didn't hear a lot about March Madness this time, oddly enough. I usually hear a lot about it. And this year I didn't hear too much about it, because it is really a big thing. People do squares where they bet who's going to win, and it's a whole thing, man. Like, it is a legit. I worked at a couple places that they were big on it. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, it's college bat, like Villanova and all that. They get real big into it, man. It's different. College sports are different than pro sports.
That's a good point too.
College football is a whole different animal than NFL.
That's a good point, too, because I almost didn't think about that when I was thinking about doing this show, that college sports, although some college football is starting to creep towards pro football territory and making it kind of like, commercials and this and kind of like scripting here and there. But, yeah, watching watching a college game, a good college game, versus a pro football game is such a dramatic difference. And for basketball, it's probably the same. I don't watch enough of it to know, but I mean, I gotta understand that, because when you're doing the college thing, I think it's because you're not playing for like the big endorsements or for the big all that other kind of stuff. You're playing for your school, for school pride and all that kind of stuff. It's a different feeling. You got a different kind of hunger for it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you have a lot to prove. It's the same with music. If you listen to a lot of artists when they start their careers versus when they sort of wind down their careers, they start hungry. They sound different. And then as they go on, they sort of fall into the rhythm of making the same album.
Turn into legacy kind of stuff, too.
Exactly, yeah.
All your old, real big 80s acts are now, most of them are legacy acts. They don't put out new music, they just play the hits anymore. You got Kiss, you got Motley Crue, all these people. And it's maybe they're still good, but, well, maybe not Motley Crue. They're kind of terrible live. But,
I've heard.
But still, you go see them because you know what? You don't care that they're going to play new music. They're going to play the hits. But there's a lot of other people that are like, you could have kept going. You could have done something different, and they just didn't. Just didn't.
That's a sad situation a lot of times. Anyways, this isn't what the show's about.
Hey, but good point though. It's a good comparison. Next on, we got baseball, and I was when I was a kid, I was kind of a big baseball fan. I was a fan of the pre-Guardians, and I'm going to use the word because I don't think it's a dirty word. I'm going to call them the Indians because that's what they were at the time. It's not a big deal. That's what they were at the time, so that's what I'm going to call them. And I've been to a few games, and I actually had a reputation, unfortunately. My cousin, he used to sometimes go with the games with me, or we'd watch the games on TV. And there was a pattern where every time we would go, or I would watch a game, they would lose. But if I didn't, they wouldn't. So it came to be like I was bad luck for the team. Not really. That's just how kids go. But it was still kind of fun. I mean, baseball is a slow game, though.
100%.
It's a slow game. You sit in the stands, and it takes a long time. People underestimate just how few runs, full runs there are, and home runs and things. And you hear about, what was that guy that did, the home run record some years ago? And they thought he was on roids or something like that. What was his name? He was the big...
You talking about Barry Bonds?
No, he was good. He was good though too. But this was another guy. He had the red hair and the little goatee. Oh man, I'm seeing his face. I can see him in my memory.
What years are we talking about?
This is probably 2000s at least. He was he would hit home runs constantly. That was his thing. He would constantly hit home runs.
It wasn't the Yankees guy, was it?
I don't even remember what team he was on. Honestly.
It wasn't Derek Jeter.
No, it wasn't Derek. He's a good player though, from what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember Derek Jeter. I remember some names from people who used
Sammy
to be on
Sosa?
the back then. No.
Mark McGwire?
Yes, that was the guy. They pushed him real big for a while, and then they didn't know if he was using illegal substances or whatnot. But I remember stuff like that, and I remember back when they were still the Indians, and they went to the World Series twice in a row, 2 years in a row, and lost both times.
Yeah.
And I think it was both times against the Yankees.
No, the one year was against the Atlanta Braves because I was in high school. I think I was at homecoming, and they were playing that game. And I remember instead of dancing, I was watching the baseball game. I was like, oh, "They're gonna win!" Yeah, and then.
And after that, that was the last time they had a team of people that I remember. Because after that, they made a bunch of trades, and almost everybody they traded went to the Yankees.
Yeah.
And then they were never quite as good afterwards. You hear them sometimes getting into the playoffs, but they've never been the team they were. That was the golden age, I think, at least from what I remember.
Now I don't know if you remember this, but they actually made the World Series, I believe. I want to say 6-7 years ago, and I watched one of the last games. I think it was the last game because they ended up losing. It was a really solid game. The Indians were winning. Let me check here because I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I'll be honest because I fell off. I don't if you asked me, I would say I guess I'm a Cleveland sports team fan for the most part, but I haven't watched a well, now a Guardians game. I haven't watched any of them in a long time because it just fell
The
off.
2016 World Series. I remember this. They played the Cubs, and the Cubs hadn't won a World Series, and I forget. It was many years.
Was that the year they finally like broke their losing streak?
Yes, that was the year, and of course they broke it against the Indians.
Yep.
I remember watching Game 7 on TV, and it was a rain delay. I remember this rain delay right as because it was tied, right as the 10th inning was about to start. And then they came back. The Cubs came back from a 3-1 deficit. 3-1 deficit to win a best of 7 World Series.
For people who don't know baseball, that's actually a pretty big deal. You hear, 3-1, that's not very high, but baseball is very slow. Remember.
Yeah.
So go ahead, keep going, because I just wanted to make sure I reminded everybody.
Oh no, and a lot of games are best of 7, except football. Football is the only one where they play one game and that's it. They don't play a best of 7; they just play one game. I swear.
Yeah.
Basketball and baseball, it's games of 7, and whoever wins 4 of those 7, or if you win 4, your team moves on, the other team goes home. So I remember watching that game, and I don't know why. I don't know what caused me to watch it. I remember just staying up. It was like right after Halloween. I believe it was like November 1st, November 2nd. And I remember just sitting there watching it. I don't know why. I don't know where I had been. I'd been somewhere, and I came home, and it was on. I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and watch the game. I didn't watch a lot of baseball. I mean, I watched bits and pieces here and there, and of course, in different spots. But yeah, that Game 7, it rained. I remember that rain because I'm like, oh, they were about to win. Mm-hmm. They were so close to winning, and I was like, they're going to lose because of that rain delay. And when they came back, I knew they were going to lose. Just had that feeling. And my favorite team, by the way, is the Baltimore Orioles because I am a Cal Ripken Jr. fan. So
I was going to ask what was coming up next because I want to make sure I keep tabs on where you've got your favorites in here and there. Make sure we're all on the same page with all that.
Yes.
The next one, I don't really have a stake in so much. Because I don't I'm not a sports guy to begin with, and this kind of gets less airplay most of the time anyway. It's one of those things that we kind of do. Is hockey. I don't really have a hockey team. I remember being a kid watching Mighty Ducks and all those big hockey movies and things, but I've never really been I do like some of it, and hockey can be vicious. Hockey is people beating the crap out of each other right there on the ice constantly. And we used to play field hockey in school, and I was all right with that because I could hit people, and that was fine because I was an angry child. But I've never really been really invested in hockey. I mean, do you have a team? Do you follow hockey close enough?
100%. 100%.
Oh, boy. Okay, here's a surprise because I've never asked you this before. I've 100%. Never asked about your hockey stuff, so here we go. I'm going to learn something.
I legit watch hockey. If it's on, I'll legit watch it. I've watched a lot of hockey in my time here in this spot. I love it. The Tampa Bay Lightning. I watched them win a Stanley Cup. That's their World Series and their NBA Finals. Stanley Cup, and I believe 2003. I believe against the Calgary Flames, if I'm not mistaken. And it was kind of controversial because they say the puck didn't go in, but it went in. No matter what people say, it went in. And that was an amazing game. And I followed them ever since. And they won. They won back-to-back Stanley Cups. I believe it was probably, I want to say, oh man, the thing happened in 2020, and I think they won 2021 and 2022. The one year they didn't have any people in the stands, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But whatever. But yeah, I watched. Man, I watched them. They've won 3 Stanley Cups. It was 2004. I'm sorry, 2004, 2020, and 2021. I didn't watch a lot of the 2021, but I watched a good chunk of the 2021. But that 2004, man, that was the year, man. That was the year. I've been watching them back and forth, and it was good. In the game, it went crazy because it went to 7 games. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being, so it went Calgary won, then Tampa won, then Calgary won, then Tampa won. then Calgary won, and Tampa won, and then Tampa ended up winning in Game 7, 2-1. That was a crazy game. I watched all 7 of those games. And the funny thing about it is they have very known sportscasters for that. I can't remember the guy's name, but I'd have to pull it up at some point.
But it's a regular person. Like anybody who watches it would be like, oh yeah, there's so and so. He knows.
Exactly. It could be like so. It's Gary Thorne, Bill Clement, and John Davidson were all announcers for that game. I think it's Gary Thorne. I want to say it's Gary Thorne. So, but yeah, that was a really amazing game, and I've watched it since. I'll watch hockey. I will sit and watch some hockey. It's a good sports. I like good sports. It's fast, it's quick, and it's lightning fast. It's good stuff. I like it.
And see, I didn't know that. Now I know that. Now I know that's a new fact, which is good. I always like to learn new stuff. Like I said, I've never been like. I don't often sit down and watch sports. My daughter is starting to get into, and this is her obligatory shout out because she likes to be mentioned every single episode I do the show because she listens to the show now. But she wants to start watching some things. She wants to start like watching some football and baseball and things because she hasn't ever had the chance to. So now I'm gonna have to probably start getting into some things to start watching it. And her mom likes hockey. Like her mom's big on hockey.
Nice. Who's her team?
Penguins. Big.
You're probably gonna have to leave her. You're probably gonna have to leave her.
I mean,
you're gonna have to leave her. Tell her to go live with Stanley, or tell her to go live with Crosby.
A lot of my family is Penguins fans too, which is weird because I don't like. Anytime I've never known most of my family to be like, "Oh, hockey's great," but my younger sister is super into hockey, and the Penguins are her favorite team. She's met like half the players. She's like. Got autographed stuff and all this other thing.
Next time you talk to her, ask her how she feels about Alexander Ovechkin.
She'll probably. I don't want to say for sure, but she's had a license plate for one of their players. I don't remember what it was, but she went as far as having a license plate.
No. He doesn't play for the Penguins. He plays for the Washington. Well, I don't know if he still plays for the Washington Capitals, but. They've beat them a few times, so...
Yeah, it's probably going to be a contentious... probably not something I want to bring up next Thanksgiving.
You definitely should. You 100,000%.
Set up some hidden cameras and watch that
totally. And then just watch it deteriorate.
The last thing we've got, and again, I don't really have a stake in this either, which I think unfortunately, a lot of people in the United States don't necessarily, except for the women's team, because the women's team. But that's getting back into the end part of our segment, which is going to be the big one. But soccer, like we do soccer, but we don't. Like soccer is huge everywhere else. Spain loves soccer. South America loves soccer. Europe loves soccer. All these places, they love it. And here in the United States, we're like, oh yeah, we play that. And that's kind of the attitude, like, oh yeah, we play that. That's all.
You know who else loves soccer? Me. I thoroughly enjoy it. I enjoy it as much as I do hockey. Those two are probably my favorite sports to watch. Hockey and soccer are my two favorite sports to watch. When the World Cup comes, I believe the World Cup comes next year, I think. But I think the Olympics... Let's see, summer, winter. It's summer, so it's in Paris. Paris is weird because you could have summer or winter in Paris. No, it's summer because it's in July, so it'll be in summer. So I think the World Cup is also next year because the World Cup's every 4 years. And I think 2020. I don't know if they had in 2020. I don't remember if they did, but I remember having one of our buddies from Sears over and we watched the World Cup. I watched a good chunk of that. Listen, soccer is amazing. Because it's 90 minutes, and it just keeps going. And there's an intermission, and then they just play. They play for 45 minutes, and these guys will be out there on the field still playing. Then they'll take these hilarious fouls, and they'll just hold their knee for like a minute, because that's how they get their breaks.
Yeah. And they can, there's some major damage you get sometimes in soccer. People think hockey is like the violent sport. But sometimes, some of those soccer matches, they like, oh man, they slam, they scrape, and they got big bloody scrapes up their knees and things. Oh man, like they really can hurt each other, and they get penalties left and right. Like penalties in soccer, like constant, every 2 seconds.
Red cards right and left.
Yep, there we go.
There it is.
And that leads us to, because we talked about the women's soccer team, we're of course talking about the national team, which is part of your favorite sporting event of all time. And this is where, if anybody could be said to be super patriotic, it's at this time for you right here, because I know from experience, this is the Olympics. And the Olympics are like your thing. Like, you will tell me constantly about the Olympics. When we were at Sears, you would constantly come in and like, switch it to the Olympics on the TV. Like, switch it to the Olympics. Switch this. Switch them all to the Olympics.
And they would do it, too. They would do it. They would switch to the Olympics. And
there'd be like 12 people back there all watching the Olympics, and I'm just sitting there trying to like sell something and be like, oh, Olympics.
I'm like, the Olympics are on. This is important.
This is history in the making.
Yeah. I have fond memories of the Olympics. I've been watching the Olympics since I was a kid. The 80s. I've been watching the Olympics since the 80s. And I have fond memories of darn near almost every single Olympics. Every single one. I've seen the women's hockey team, the United States, win and then lose in 4 years. That was rough.
We have a tendency sometimes within those events to get to a certain point and then really kind of choke, unfortunately.
Well, it's Canada, and that's what they do in Canada.
Yep.
So it was a game. Well, the first one was a game. That was a great game. Oh, man. It went to penalty shots. Which is, if for those of you that don't know what penalty shots are, at the end of the game, if it's still tied, each player from the respective team takes a shot on goal. If they make it, and the other person makes it, then they get 2 more players and they take shots, and that continues until somebody finally gets it. If one person makes it and the other misses, then it's game over.
Yep.
And the team that made it wins. And I got to see that, and that was just... I remember, because I will... legitimately now, I'm dead serious, I will wake up at like 2:30 in the morning, because a lot of times the Olympics are in a whole other country. I will get up at like 2:30 in the morning and legitimately watch the Olympics live. And I will have multiple devices on with the Olympics. I'll have the TV, I'll have my phone, and I even have a tablet I pull out so I can watch 3 different events at once, and I 100% will watch 3 different events at once. No debate.
Yeah, I've seen this in action. Like, I've seen you up at Sears, like, with your phone out, checking scores, while the TVs are on.
Yeah,
and
because
like...
I got to know who's winning the hockey game, or who's
right.
winning the soccer game, or the baseball game, or the softball game, or the, who's got first place in this. And, a lot of people, they just watch the stuff at night. Well, the stuff at night is taped. I watch that stuff live, and I've seen everything from the bobsled to the javelin to ping pong, badminton, the running. One of the coolest things is the last day of the Olympics, which is on a Sunday, and they do the closing ceremonies on a Sunday. They do the opening ceremonies on a Friday and the closing ceremonies on a Sunday. Well, the closing ceremonies, they always have the marathon, and it's always some guy out of Africa. Like, I think last year, I forget where the last Olympics, it was some guy out of Africa. These are skinny guys, and they just run. They don't do nothing else. And it was like 50 kilometers, which I don't remember like what the conversion is to miles. I think it was like 20 some odd miles or 30 miles. Listen, I couldn't do it. Let's just say that much. But it's like an end of a great 2 weeks. Because the Olympics is 2 weeks, and I am literally watching as much Olympic coverage as I can humanly watch. And I will sit there for hours. I won't leave. If I have to leave, it's to go get something to eat or go get a nice cold beverage just to get right back to it. I remember watching the 2012 Olympics, and I think those were in London, if I'm not mistaken, because I was working at Sears at the time, and I would literally just leave work, go home, turn it on. I was watching those like, man, that was good times. Yeah, I love them. The summer, winter, doesn't matter.
And there's big names that come out of the Olympics too. Like Usain Bolt was one of those super fast runners that just and he made it look easy. Like I watched some of his races, and he would just go, and then the last couple feet he'd just be like, "Yep, just jogging," basically, because he was so far ahead of everybody. And some of these people really are superhuman. Like they're really, really good at it. And that's the thing about it. Like people, you think, oh, it's just you go to the Olympics, you got to train hard and everything, and it's not just that. It's so many people that go there. They're just one cut above everything else. They don't just train hard. They're a different breed of people, and they do these things, and I can't even imagine. Like I can't imagine doing any of that kind of stuff. Like even some of the stuff looks on the surface of it, you think, oh, that looks kind of silly. But once you get into how much work goes into it, like this is the example I always use, is the curling. Yes. Curling looks, as an outsider, you look at like, that looks really kind of weird. Like, how does that take any talent? But man, like, you consider every person on those curling teams, the ice scrapers, the person pushing the thing, everybody's got to be in sync 100% for that to work. And that ice is not like, it's slippery ice. It's sheer ice. It's not like they're just like wearing regular shoes. They got to have the special cleats on and everything. And man, it's a lot more difficult than it looks.
And I've done it. So yes, I've actually curled. It is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. You get winded quick because you're sweeping. You're sweeping for the stone. It's called a stone. They throw a stone down. Your goal is to get the middle, but then the other team's goal is to knock you out. And then it's all based on who gets closest to the middle. And I've seen them have to bring out this measuring device. It's intense, man. I mean, people are like, whatever. But it is an intense sport. Yeah. And that's another one. I will watch darn near every game. Women's, men's, doesn't matter. I'm there to watch it. Yes.
And it's not always, like, I don't want to get into some of the more modern, like, protesty kind of controversies, but there's sometimes some pretty like in-depth controversial things. Like the Olympics in the past has been bombed more than once.
Atlanta was one of them,
and in Munich too, like a long time ago, before our time.
I remember this too.
And then sometimes people take it into their own hands to try to win events, because when we were younger, we always knew about the whole like the Nancy Kerrigan thing.
Harding, Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah, that whole situation, like, people get so serious about this stuff. And
I hit somebody in the knee with a toilet paper roll, or no, it was a paper towel roll. And I go, Nancy Kerrigan, and they were like, who's that? And I was like, I don't know. If
people don't remember it anymore. I know, it's crazy. Like, when we were younger, like, a huge thing.
That was a big thing.
But you get that. Like, and even now, like I said, we're not going to get into some of the specific controversies now, because those are kind of hot button stuff. But you get into that with like the women's soccer team, and you got with some of the basketball stuff, and there were like some of the gymnastics and the tennis. Like both of those were like big controversial things this time too.
Well, the Chinese team, I guess, had underage performers.
That too.
For one of them, I remember that being a big thing.
And then you had Russia. Russia supposedly was doping its members and stuff, and they were banned from the Olympics for like how many years? Like it's like for 2 events or something like that.
Two Olympics.
Yeah,
and then they had Oscar Pistorius, who was this guy who ran on blades, and I remember this, and he was a beast. I'm like, look at this dude, he's running on blades. He didn't have legs. He had just blades that he would run on because he didn't have legs. And I remember watching that. I'm like, wow, that dude's a beast. And then he turns around and like shoots his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Literally. And then like it was a whole thing. I think he went to jail or something happened to him, but it was so like weird, and then you have and I wanted to mention another, you had Michael Phelps. Mm-hmm. You had Chrissy Yamaguchi. You have all these just really talented people that came out of nowhere. Michael Phelps, like I think he did his last in like 2016. I believe maybe it was Brazil, because I know Brazil. Was 2016, and that was it for him.
And he was
crazy
like,
not seeing him swim.
He was so good at it, and he would still like he would take not really performance-enhancing stuff, but he would take probably performance-debilitating things, like, off and on here and there, and that was a big controversy, but he would still win. So it's
yeah, 100%.
Is that really a problem? If you're taking things that would make you less good and you still win, I think, you might as well give it to him.
And then some of the Winter Olympics where they're skiing down the mountain and people are getting hurt, literally just like, it's
yeah.
I love it though. I'll be glued to the TV come July of 2024, and then in 2026 when they have the next Winter Games.
Well, there you go. That's coming up. One last thing I want to hit real quick, and it's kind of a big thing here in the United States, but also places like Japan, is we have sports, but then we also have sports entertainment, which is a polite way of saying fake sports. That still takes some effort, though. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. We have, and it's big in Japan, too, we have pro wrestling, and people are going to be like, oh, this is where the show's going now. They're going to go for football to pro wrestling. Okay. But, and we're not going to get too deep into that, but the thing about this is, I mean, these guys, they do have to work when they're running around the ring. They can't be just, like, some people have made a career out of being big and flabby and just, and that's their gimmick, not very good. But a lot of the other guys are constantly, like, you got to maintain that look. You got to maintain that definition. You got to still be able to jump. You still got to be able to move. And you notice when they haven't trained enough. You can tell when somebody makes a mistake. And people think here it gets kind of like crazy with storylines, but then you look at Japan, and people are constantly bleeding and just always, like, messy and stuff. And it, like, I think there's a place for sports entertainment with the whole sports landscape. I mean, it may not be quite the same level of reality, but it still takes some talent that I don't have.
Same. I agree. We should do a show on that one at some point. That'd be another good show to do.
Yeah, because we could do a whole thing. Because just the differences between what we have here in the United States versus what they have in Japan could take up a whole episode. Because there's so many differences in just storyline, presentation, and the way they do it, and just the damage that can be done. It's such a different landscape, plus all the history of everything.
Oh, yeah. We should definitely think about that for sure.
Yeah, that might be coming up. And with that being said, we're about here at the end, and that's the end of season 1, of course. I want to say a big thank you to Rob, of course, for being here and being a good sport.
Oh,
hey!
Thank you very much for having me. Enjoyed the whole chat. Went by super quick because I could talk about sports. A lot of people, I'm into a lot of different things, but sports, a lot of people don't think I'm into sports. But yeah, I'm into sports. If you catch me, you want to talk about sports, talk about some sports. You're not going to catch me knowing statistics about sports. I'm not going to know about
no batting averages and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Home run averages and all that jazz and, percentages and all that. But I know a little bit, so, come say hi. Come talk about sports.
He knows more than I do. I'll say that. So if you guys want, a bit more of an informed opinion on this, then he's more likely to get entertaining than I am. I can tell you some things, but they're probably not great.
And we'll have to get together and watch some sports.
That's right.
We haven't done that yet. We have to watch some sports.
But yeah, that's going to be the end. This is the end of season 1, so I'm going to be taking an entire month off from this Monday show to just kind of recharge a little bit, take that extra day of the week off, and get back into the headspace, and then we'll be back in July. Let's see, what's the next Monday in July? Let me take a peek here. I'm going to pull it up on my calendar. I'll say July 17th. July 17th we'll be back with season 2. And a lot of good topics, a lot of good stuff. So thanks everybody for enjoying and listening and sharing with your friends if you did so. If you didn't, well, shame on you. How am I going to afford that $80,000 RV if you're not sharing with your friends?
And that $13,000 baby.
That's right. That's a joke. But maybe it's not. But that's all we got. So I'm going to say goodnight, and I will catch all you folks next time.